Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you, Siddharth. Thank you, Mr. Vats, and for inviting me to this uh, ceremony that all of you, I'm sure, will remember because you are passing out, you are getting into a new stage of your life. I was just thinking about it, going back in time, that when we graduated, uh, such practices were not in vogue except in very, very some prestigious institution. But the day of your passing out has always been a day that you will always remember what you did, what thoughts came across you. Uh, so it's a very solemn occasion. It's an occasion which needs to be celebrated, needs to be commemorated, and the oath that you take about what you would do in life to redeem your own promise is something that you should never lose sight of. Um, when Siddharth, who's a very dear friend, asked me that this is something like this is happening, and he he said what you would like to speak on. So actually, in journalism, counter question is always a way out and also reveals and elicits more information. So I told him that, what do you think I should speak on? And lo and behold, he came up with a subject which was so dear to me. It's something that, and I tweaked a little bit, but not at all in substance. And that's the subject that I would like to speak on. Um, but before I do that, I must congratulate all of you. My best wishes to all of you who are graduating, and I'm sure you will be in the right path and the right vocation. And those of you, Mr. Watts talked about, have joined um, the communication sector, the public relations. Um, uh, Remember that whether you are a journalist or whether you are in the media, your basic goals and the basic functions are primarily the same, which is communication, and how effectively you communicate, how well you communicate, on whose behalf do you communicate, and how well you can achieve those results. So therefore, wherever you are, what you will learn, the skills that you acquired during your 2 year course will stand you in good stead, and I wish you all the best. Uh, what I will do in the next 20 odd minutes is try to explain to you how technology is, let me say, whether it is playing havoc or it is actually becoming a bigger tool. Uh, Technology is something that people of my generation, and I've already been dubbed an old man, a veteran means an old man, and he should retire. So, when I joined this profession, I used to uh, write my stories on a typewriter with two carbon papers, because you have to file your copy and three copies. So my first job would be to roll that three pieces of paper interspersed with carbon copies, so that I roll it into it and then write it. And write it not in the way we write today, I write today. Write it, you were thinking about it, what should be my first sentence? Think 10 times before you do that. So your mental discipline is of a different order, because there was no technology to change my intro time and again, 100 times, because I have to get it right instead of. So there is very limited scope. Now, how many pages will it destroy? So there was this technology did not allow me to experiment with intros, experiment with my first sentence, with the second sentence, the third sentence. I don't know how many of you have done literature. Ernest Hemingway wrote a famous novel, A Farewell to Arms. How many of you know of this? Farewell to Arms. Okay. Now, that novel had one of the best chapters, 35th chapter, wherein he says goodbye to his wife Catherine, who is dying, and he's an army guy. Now, Ernest Hemingway, a journalist to the core, is supposed to have rewritten that last chapter 40 times. Now, those were the days when there was no computer. So today, if Ernest Hemingway had to born again and write it, I'm sure he would not have written it 34 times. He would have revised it, and written it in a way you wouldn't even know. There will be no record of that, even the 35 revisions. So therefore, what I'm saying is that technology is a big tool, but it is also can be a problem, which I'll come to later. So there is no doubt that our profession, the media profession, and when I say media, I include both sides of the profession, not narrowly segmented into only those who are working for newspapers, but also those who are working in the world of communication. Now that has seen tectonic changes. I mean, there are major changes, and that has happened in the last few years. And I would like to classify them under four broad categories. First, I would say structural change. And the structural change is a little bit about the ownership, in the sense that there was a time till 1990s or even early 2000 that newspapers and the media was owned by large industry, big industry, or trusts or societies. But today, the ownership of media is diffused, disparate. Anybody can set up a media outfit and can be called a media company. So there is more competition, there is more opportunities. Media scene, as in that sense, has become more contestable. It was not a contestable sector 5 years ago, 15 years or 20 years ago. It's become very, very contestable. That's number one, on the structural side. The second change that has happened is with regard to the business model of the media itself. Now, there was a time when newspapers would be run on the basis of what your subscription base is, what your revenue that is coming from the readers. In a sense that if you are producing a newspaper or a magazine at a cost of, let us say, 5 rupees, you would like to recover that almost 4 rupees out of that will come from the subscription revenue. But that has changed over the last 20 years, or 25 years, I would say. What has happened is that there's an advertisement as a source of revenue has grown to such an extent that it has become almost 95% of your total revenue. Now that has its own implications. I'm not talking about technology here, but the entire structural pattern of the Indian media has changed dramatically. It has not changed the same way in the developed markets. Even now, the Financial Times, the price at which it is sold, it takes care of almost 75 or 80% of its total costs. Whereas in India, a paper like which I represent, Business Standard, where the advertisement revenue would almost be around 60 to 70% of its total revenue. Which means what? Which means as a media organization, you are a little more dependent on the advertisement flow. Your financial viability is critically dependent on whether your advertisement base is good. And if that advertisement base happens to be the government, your subservience to the government also becomes a little more pronounced. So therefore, the structure of the media has undergone a very significant change in the last couple of few decades. That's my first change, tectonic change that has happened. The second tectonic change is the behavioral change, and that is happening with the readers. The reading habits has undergone a dramatic change. People no longer read newspapers the way they used to. Uh, as a matter of fact, even the habit of getting a newspaper at home is becoming like what has already happened in the West at least 10, 15 years ago. Today, there are many homes I know which do not subscribe to a newspaper being dropped by the hawker at their residence. And it is coming from my own, what should I say, talking to people, even in a newspaper organization, when I talk to young reporters, young writers, journalists, they themselves don't get newspapers at home. And why? Because they think it is not worth it. They can access the same newspaper electronically. So you don't read newspapers the way the previous generation, my generation, or Siddharth's generation would have read. Now, what is the big difference in that, and why do I call it a tectonic change? Because the news as you read in a newspaper, the news that you read on a digital platform or on an electronic platform like television are completely different experiences. Now, it has got its own consequences. I'm not going into it, but the fact is that the reading habits have gone a major change. The content consumption pattern has changed. People are not interested in writing. Most people are not interested in reading long form. They are rather interested in shorter this thing. 90% of readers, this is a survey, 90% of the readers dropped the story after reading the headline. So you are trying to capture them through the headline, and then the remaining 10%, maybe 5% stay on in the first para, and the last unfortunate 5% stay on to the same story. Now, this is the nature of the media, the behavioral change, and the post-COVID syndrome is even more pronounced. What has happened in the post-COVID world is there is a clear dilution in the sorry. There is a clear dilution in the level of the intellectual osmosis that takes place in readers as well as in newspapers. Now, what is an osmosis? You know that there is something called reverse osmosis to distill your water, and this osmosis I'm talking about is of intellectual osmosis, wherein I am talking to you, you are listening to me, and then when you get an opportunity to ask me questions, there are things that are happening between you and me. And that gives me greater understanding, realization, takeaways for me. Now, in a post-COVID world, the scope for that intellectual osmosis has come down drastically because these days you are doing more interaction, even now in the post-COVID situation, even now in my own office, most of our meetings are happening online. What happens in online? There is no osmosis. Why? Because at least 80 to 90% of people switch off their cameras. They don't even look into the camera. You're only listening, you may be doing something else. You may be doing something else. And you sit and listen to it. Whenever you want to butt in, you can butt in and step in or whatever. Now, but in a physical environment, like I am here, you are forced to look at me. You are forced to listen to me whether you like me or not. And that osmosis takes place. So there is a greater quality of understanding and quality of internalization of thoughts and ideas that take place through that osmosis process, which have gone away. It's become rather one way instead of being a two-way process. So when I go to the newspaper offices or my own office, I constantly regret the fact that we have stopped having physical meetings wherein I could say something and hear something back for what I say. In an online situation, it does not happen that regularly. So that is the other form of change that has happened, which is behavioral. The third is technological change, which is uh, the rise of technology. You're doing everything, whether it is a question of writing a copy, whether you are even using the chat GPT for getting a better headline, everything, or even getting information material to write your paper for the final examination, or you see, what you are doing is this, that you are not trying to own what you know, but you are always trying to access something that you need to know. So this new world has created a sharp distinction between access and ownership. Today's younger generation are actually very good at accessing information, something that my generation did not have. If I wanted to know that what was the budget deficit number of 1966 or 1976, good old days, I had to go out and go to a library and get that old budget document out, nothing else. If I wanted to know that what kind of a company is Hindalco, I had to go and get that annual report out, physical report. There was no other way I could have known that what is Hindalco after all. If I wanted to know the GDP number of India in 1977 or 1990, I could not have gone, I had to go and fish that National Statistical Office book, annual book. Today what has happened is that I am absolutely cool about it. I don't worry about keeping these records because I know that the click of a button on my computer, I can see the data, what I want. I can know anything on my mobile phone today. Now this is called access. But access does not necessarily lead to ownership. Therefore, understanding, interpretation, and thought processing. Access makes you also, in my view, little intellectually lazy. So that's a big change that has happened, and through technology. Now, the second thing that has happened on technological change is the disintermediation of what I call the media. The media was itself intermediated, but today technology has made media itself disintermediated. In a sense that what you see is that you don't need the media, all you need is the technology, the platform by which you can reach out to people. Doesn't really matter whether you are interacting with that person or that platform or not. It's a one-way communication right through. So and the media which was supposed to encourage the two-way communication, I mean, as a matter of fact, even the print has imbibed the spirit of the disintermediation of media. There was a time I started my journalism when I was in college by writing letters to the editor. The number of letters to the editor that I would write would actually allow me to engage with the newspaper. There used to be a full-time job in newspapers till recently, which would actually look at letters that would come from the readers and publish some of the best ones. Now, what was that? That was a two-way communication. Now, today, there's nothing of that sort is happening. It is thanks largely to technology. Now, so therefore, the disintermediation of media is also another tectonic change that has taken place. And the fourth change is not the fourth, the technological change has also redefined the role and functions of media practitioners themselves. So because whatever it is, after all, and whatever you are, because of technology, your role and functions have undergone a change. And the final change that I see, the tectonic change that has happened in the last few years, is socio-political. So I have covered the structural change, I have covered the behavioral change, I have covered the technological change, and the final change that I am talking about is the socio-political change. And that socio-political change is twofold. At one level, society's trust in media has declined significantly. I'm not going into the reasons, but the fact of the matter is the society's trust in media has fallen. Uh, Also because society has more choices for information, more platforms are there. Now, and the second level is that governments are tightening their hold on media. And it is not just talking about today's government, even yesterday's government was doing the same, but today it has got stronger. So the government hold of the media as well as the society's trust in media, one has declined, the other has risen. Now, these are the four broad areas where changes have happened. And in all these areas, and since I have already crossed my time, uh, yeah, yeah. Don't allow me to inflict myself on them for so long. Now, what has happened is in all these areas, you are seeing the role of technology in far too many ways. I mean, imagine how the business model that I talked about in my first preliminary point, as how that business model has got completely vitiated by the rise of technology. There is something called FANG. FANG is the short form of four major companies: Facebook, Amazon, Netflix, and Google. Now, since everybody is into digital media, the entire revenue is mopped up by the FANG companies, leaving very little, almost at the mercy of these FANG companies, the traditional media houses, not just in India, globally. There are some movements against that FANG, which is happening in Australia, New Zealand, Europe a little bit, not so much in India so far. Now, till that happens, I would say the stranglehold of the technology giants on the media's revenue source will further squeeze and vitiate the business model that has been nurtured over the years. That's number one. Number two is that the uh, technology has further accentuated this behavioral change in ways that we consume media. So what is happening is that we are becoming actually, in many ways, servants of technology, even in the practitioner of media, servants of technology instead of its masters. There was an old saying that I used to hear from my parents is that, habit is a very good servant, but a very bad master. And I would like to say technology is a very good servant, but a very bad master. Now, I think what has happened in the case of media at least, that technology today drives your core goals. Today, people in journalism judge their readership, viewership, how good they are by traffic. And how is traffic calculated is once again driven by the way technology is used. There's something called a search engine optimization. If you know how to change a headline in a certain way, if you know that one of these fans will tell you that this is the way you can change the headline or change the right keyword. If you can bring somehow, doesn't really matter, if you can bring Mr. Narendra Modi's name in the first sentence of your story, it will be read because Mr. Modi is viral. Now, I'm giving a very odd example from this thing, but the fact of the matter is that every journalist today is now driven by this technology to not write good content that he thinks his readers will benefit from, but writing content in a way and is driven by technology once again so that it gets his traffic, which is regulated by technology. So, therefore, in a sense, technology has become your master and your content is so. Therefore, what you will do is this: even if you want to write about such a lovely lecture that I am delivering, you will not be allowed to write because technology will tell you that A.K. Bhattacharya is passive. Don't listen to him. So I'm just giving a offhand example, but don't take it for real. But exactly what I have seen in newsroom these days In newsrooms, there are now television screens that capture that which subject is trending and why. So the people who are writing stories are actually looking at that screen and guided by that. Now, the question that I would like to raise before you is that, of course, technology is important. You must use technology, but is it possible to use technology more as a tool for enhancing content rather than letting technology decide how to enhance your content? So I said it very easily, but it cannot be done easily. I can tell you this much. We are struggling. Everybody is struggling. So therefore, I would say that it's the same reason the media's independence and the society's trust in media today is actually undermined because of this over dependence on technology. In a sense, we have to strike a balance. We cannot ignore technology. I'm not a Luddite. I'm not saying that you should forget about what is search engine optimization, but it is important to use technology. You cannot ignore technology, but if it is better used as a tool for your benefit and not be a servant, I think it will be better. What I can assure you, from my own experience is that you are getting into a profession that whatever will be the technology or whatever will be the rise of technology, the relevance of media professionals, those who are in the business of communication, can never go away. I mean, this is a job, this is a profession whose role can never be diluted, undermined, whatever be the technology. It's a bit like the software professionals who are not worried about AI or Gen AI. They're saying that, okay, AI will come, Gen AI will come, but they will need different kind of techies, the different kind of technology guys who can use and make Gen AI better. So similarly, I would say that there will be change, technologies all over us, but do not be afraid of technology. Take on that technology and be better with your own skills so that you can continue to remain as relevant as you were earlier. There is this example that I keep giving, and I hope I'm not repeating myself, is that one of the earliest onslaught of technology was the carbon paper. And this is a true story. In Reserve Bank of India, Calcutta office, it was the headquarters then, not Bombay before that. Now, there was a strike in the Reserve Bank of India Calcutta office because Reserve Bank of India decided that their typists would start using carbon paper. So the manager, was extremely distraught. What to do? Now these guys are struck work. What can? So, and finally he managed to convince them, use everything. But the lesson from that is, and one of the arguments that this person gave to those clerks was that, listen, do not focus on the quantity of work that you are doing, focus on the quality of work that you will be doing. So my argument on technology is, if you use technology to your own benefit, focus on yourself, how you can equip yourself better to use the technology that you have for being even a better journalist, being a better communication professional. So that is going to be the rule of technology, the role of technology. It is not that technology will come and wipe us out, but we need to embrace technology, but don't give up your own job. I keep saying that, will the sub-editor go away? I have seen myself 3 professions just go away. But my sense is, no, the profession of sub-editor or editor will not go away. Their nature, the quality of work they do will go away. Reporters will not go away, but the kind of work they do will change with technology. It is futile to resist technology. It is important to embrace technology after ensuring regulation and monitoring and supervision at all levels, at the government level, at the industry level, at the organization level, at an individual level. But don't shun technology, but don't be guided by it. Use it to your own benefit. And as a media professional, since you are just going to enter this profession, I would say that this is one profession where, come what may, technology or no technology, this is one profession where you get paid, where you get paid for learning new things every day. I don't know how many professions are there where somebody will pay you for you so that you know new things every day. Every day of your life will be learning a new thing, and don't move away from that basic goal of learning new things with technology or without technology. At the end, what I would say is this: yes, I agree with what Siddharth said, that technology should be used to empower you, not to overpower you. Thank you very much. And once again, my best wishes to everyone.